I, there wasn't anything left to say, Larry. You know, when that accident happened.
It was a cold November night in 1981 when Hollywood's golden girl, Natalie Wood, vanished without a trace from the yacht Splendor. The night sky was a deep, inky black, the ocean waves lapping silently against the hull. Natalie, radiant as ever, still wore her thin nightgown, a crimson coat draped over her shoulders. It was a night that began with laughter and glamour, but ended in horror. At first, the world was told it was a tragic accident. Natalie had slipped while trying to board the yacht's small dinghy. But the evidence told a more sinister story. Bruises marked her arms, scratches etched across her legs and face. Her lifelong fear of water made the story of a simple slip hard to believe. Questions swirled around the most prominent name in her life, her husband, Robert Wagner. Friends testified that Wagner had been controlling, sometimes volatile. Rumors of jealous rage, drunken arguments, and violent confrontations circulated in whispers. For decades, the world speculated whether the night that claimed Natalie was simply tragic or a crime concealed beneath Hollywood glamour. The weekend had started like any other. Natalie, Robert Wagner, and a few close friends, including Christopher Walken, set sail near Catalina Island. The ocean glistened under the afternoon sun as champagne corks popped, laughter filled the air, and the cameras would have captured a picture-perfect scene. But behind the smiles, tension simmered. Natalie, ambitious and independent, had dreams beyond being Wagner's wife. The pressures of stardom, personal insecurities, and a love that had weathered decades created a powder keg waiting for a spark. As the sun set, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations grew heated. The subtle undertone of jealousy that had always lingered between Wagner and Natalie began to surface. Walken's presence, friendly and professional, only amplified Wagner's insecurities. A storm, not of weather but of emotion, was quietly gathering aboard the Splendor. According to Captain Dennis Davern, the night began peacefully, but wine loosened tongues and lowered inhibitions. Voices grew louder, sharp words cutting the night air like knives. Then came the explosion. Wagner allegedly shouted, "Get off my boat!" The confrontation was reportedly over Walken's closeness with Natalie, his fear of losing her, and the clash of egos that had festered over years. Wine bottles shattered on the deck, the sound echoing through the cabin, signaling a night that would become infamous in Hollywood history. Natalie, trembling but defiant, retreated from the cabin. Her thin nightgown fluttered against the cold November air as she stepped toward the deck, leaving behind the chaos of raised voices and splintered glass. That night, the yacht became the stage for a tragedy that no one could have predicted, and the ocean silently awaited its next victim. Minutes turned into hours aboard the Splendor, each second stretching into a nightmare. A chilling, suffocating silence fell over the yacht, broken only by the gentle lapping of the waves against the hull. At first, Natalie's absence went unnoticed, her presence assumed in some hidden corner of the boat. But as time passed, unease rippled among the remaining passengers, a quiet tension that quickly escalated into panic. Shadows lengthened across the deck, and every creak of the yacht seemed to echo with a silent question. Where was Natalie? According to accounts, Robert Wagner allegedly delayed the search, instructing the crew not to turn on the searchlights, not to call for help, and to remain calm while she remained missing. The decisions, or lack thereof, during those critical hours would haunt investigators and the public for decades. Meanwhile, nearby boats reported hearing faint, desperate cries for help, cutting through the darkness like shards of ice. "Help me, someone please," the voices recalled. But their pleas were met with silence, drowned by the night and by choices that would leave the world questioning what truly happened. When dawn finally broke, the unthinkable was revealed. Natalie Wood's body floated a mile from the yacht, face down in the black, cold waters of the Pacific. Her eyes closed as if surrendering to eternal sleep. Her thin nightgown clung to her body, a stark contrast to the crimson coat that drifted beside her like a silent, haunting witness. Every detail, the positioning of her limbs, the garments she wore, the emptiness of the water around her, spoke of a story that refused to be simple. The yacht's rubber dinghy, meant to remain secured, was discovered adrift, an eerie symbol of unanswered questions. How had Natalie left the boat? Was it a tragic accident, a slip into the icy water in a moment of confusion, or had something darker occurred under the veil of night? Each possibility deepened the mystery, each unanswered question adding layers of fear, speculation, and heartbreak. The image of her drifting in the water became an enduring symbol of a life interrupted, a talent lost, and a night that would remain forever shrouded in shadow. Dr. Thomas Noguchi's autopsy revealed a chilling combination. Alcohol, seasickness medication, and painkillers left Natalie disoriented. Bruises, scratches, and marks indicated possible struggle. The coroner's initial report called it accidental drowning, but the inconsistencies could not be ignored. Wagner insisted Natalie had left the cabin to check the dinghy. Walken acknowledged tension, particularly over Natalie's career ambitions. But the physical evidence told a story of resistance, fear, and potential violence. Questions emerged. Could a woman, terrified of water, have willingly approached the dinghy that night? The investigation closed in 2003, but whispers of foul play lingered. Then, in 2011, Captain Dennis Davern broke his silence, confessing he had lied about key events to protect Wagner. He described hearing sounds consistent with a physical altercation and Wagner's chilling instructions. Leave her there. Robert Wagner's narrative was inconsistent. His memoir, Pieces of My Heart, hinted at anger, guilt, and regret, but no clear account of the events that led to Natalie's death. Witnesses described screams, shouting, and evidence of struggle. Wagner admitted to smashing a wine bottle during the argument, but the public wondered if violence had gone further. For decades, the story remained shrouded in uncertainty. Police reopened the case multiple times, yet no definitive evidence emerged to confirm murder. Each new witness, each fresh account only deepened the enigma surrounding Natalie Wood's final hours. Lana Wood, Natalie's younger sister, became a relentless voice in the search for truth, refusing to let Hollywood gloss over the tragedy. For decades, she accused Robert Wagner of knowing more than he admitted, painting a portrait of a man she described as cold, evasive, and guarded, a figure whose silence spoke louder than any confession. "My sister would never have stepped into a dinghy at night," Lana insisted, her voice filled with both sorrow and righteous anger. Her words struck a chord with the public, reigniting debate and speculation. To some, Wagner was a grieving widower, a man haunted by loss. To others, he became a symbol of unanswered questions, suspicion, and possible culpability. For Lana, every interview, every public statement, every book she wrote was a way to honor her sister while demanding accountability. She spoke of the fear that had defined Natalie's relationship with water, the invisible scars left by years of tension and jealousy, and the moments leading up to that fatal night that no one would ever fully understand. Lana's determination transformed her into a guardian of Natalie's legacy, a relentless advocate ensuring that her sister's life and the truth behind her death was never forgotten. Meanwhile, Natalie's daughter, Natasha Gregson Wagner, offered a contrasting perspective, defending her father with heartfelt conviction. She described Wagner as a man shattered by loss, a father haunted by the memories of the woman he had loved so deeply. "Whatever happened, it wasn't murder," Natasha said, her words both tender and firm, revealing the complex web of grief, loyalty, and love that had defined her family's
It was November
experience.
29th, 1981,
Her testimony
a
added
cold,
another
dark
layer of
night
nuance,
off the coast of
showing
Catalina
that this
Island.
tragedy was
Natalie
not merely
Wood,
a
one of
puzzle
Hollywood's
suspicion,
brightest stars,
but a
vanished
profound
from a yacht
human
called
story of
Splendor.
suffering,
The next
regret,
morning, her body
and
was found
enduring
floating
emotional
face down
pain.
in the water.
The
She was only
contrasting
43
voices
years
of
old.
Lana and
At
Natasha
first, the
underscored
world called
the
it an
complexity
accident,
of the narrative.
but something about that
A
night
story
never
in
made
which
sense.
grief,
Why would
love,
Natalie,
suspicion,
terrified of
and
deep
loss
water, go out on a dinghy alone?
leaving the public
And
to
why did
wrestle
her
with their
husband,
own
Robert
assumptions.
Wagner, stay
It is
silent
a
for
tale
so
of a
long?
family divided
For
by
decades,
tragedy,
rumors swirled.
of a father
Jealousy,
and daughter
arguments,
navigating the
betrayal.
aftermath of
Everyone
loss,
on board,
and of a sister
Wagner,
determined to
actor
uncover
Christopher
what the
Walken,
night of
and the yacht's
November
captain
28,
Dennis Davern
1981
told different versions of the
truly
story.
held.
The truth
In
was
their
lost in the
words,
waves.
the human heart
Now at
emerges as the
95,
ultimate
Robert
witness
Wagner
to
has
history,
finally broken his
memory,
silence. And what he says
enduring
changes
sorrow.
everything.
In
Robert Wagner
2012,
and Natalie
and
Wood
again
were the
in
Hollywood dream.
2018,
She was the
the Los
beautiful
Angeles
child
Police
star who
Department
grew into a
re-examined
glamorous
the
leading
evidence.
lady.
Bruises,
He was the handsome actor
scratches,
every woman
delayed
adored.
reporting, and
They married in
contradictory
1957,
testimonies placed Wagner
divorced in
squarely in the frame of
1962,
suspicion.
and remarried in
Two new witnesses
1972,
emerged,
as if
reporting the
destiny
sounds of
couldn't keep them
struggle and
apart.
previous
Together,
violent
they seemed
behavior.
perfect.
Yet,
But behind
despite
closed
renewed
doors,
investigations,
things weren't so
recent
simple.
closure remained
Natalie's
elusive.
career kept shining,
In
while
2022,
Wagner's began to
Wagner was
fade.
cleared due to
Friends
insufficient
noticed his growing
evidence, but
insecurity.
the case was
He
never
loved her
officially
deeply,
closed.
but also
The
feared
question
losing her,
remained:
both to fame
accident,
and to other men.
negligence, or
Their
crime
love story
driven
was
by love
passion.
and
Cracks
fear.
had begun to show once
The
again.
story of Natalie
The trip
Wood
to
is
Catalina
more than a
Island was
mystery.
supposed to be
It's a
relaxing.
mirror reflecting
Just
the
Natalie,
darker truths
Wagner,
of Hollywood
Walken, and the
itself.
yacht's captain,
Behind
Dennis
the
Davern.
dazzling lights,
But even before
the
they set
glamorous
sail,
premieres, and
tension
the
was in
applause
the
of
air.
adoring fans,
Walken and Wood were
fame
co-starring
can
in
mask
Brainstorm,
human flaws,
and Hollywood gossip
ignite
hinted
hidden
that they were becoming
tensions,
close,
and
too
conceal
close.
dangerous
Wagner
secrets.
didn't like it.
The night
On the
aboard
yacht,
Splendor
drinks flowed,
revealed that
words
even
were
amidst
sharp,
luxury
and tempers
laughter,
flared.
fear
By Saturday
and
night,
jealousy
witnesses
can
on
fester
nearby
quietly,
boats heard shouting
growing
and breaking
until
glass.
tragedy strikes.
Then silence.
Behind the smiling
Sometime after
photographs,
midnight,
red
Natalie
carpet
disappeared.
appearances,
Wagner
and
later
perfectly
said
curated
something
public
terrible had
image
happened on that
lay a
boat, and
complicated
no one was
web of
talking.
conflict,
Early that
unspoken
morning, a search
resentments,
began.
and
The
fragile
captain noticed the dinghy
emotions.
missing, and so
For
was
Robert
Natalie.
Wagner,
Wagner looked
red
worried,
jacket
but
and
not
death
nightgown.
became a
The dinghy
landscape
was
of
found a
shadows.
short distance away.
The man,
The
once
official
celebrated
cause,
for his charm,
accidental drowning.
elegance, and
But
commanding
investigators
presence,
noticed bruises on her
slowly
arms and
retreated into the
legs,
corners of the
signs of a
world
struggle.
that once adored
Captain
him.
Davern later
Every
claimed that
public
Wagner
appearance was
delayed
a
calling for
reminder
help
of loss.
and tried to control
Every
what was
photograph
said.
a mirror
To
of
him,
grief.
it didn't look like an
Interviews
accident
and
at all.
memoirs were
But in
haunted by the
1981,
silence of that
Holly kept
fateful
his pain
night,
private.
the
He
unanswered
said only that
questions,
Natalie's death
and the
was a
speculation
nightmare
that
he would never
let him
escape.
rest.
But
Even
whispers
aboard
continued.
private yachts
Some
in the
said
quiet of
jealousy
family
pushed him over the
gatherings,
edge that
or in the
night.
solitude of
Others
his own
said
home,
Walken knew more
the
than he
weight of
admitted.
Natalie's absence
Christopher
and the
Walken
mystery
remained
surrounding
silent,
her death
saying
clung to
only
him
that
like a
Natalie's
constant,
death was a
chilling
terrible
shadow.
tragedy. The captain,
Hollywood,
however,
for
violently
all
with
its
Natalie
glitter
before
and
she
glamour,
vanished.
rarely
Still,
tells the
without
stories
proof,
behind
the world
curtains,
moved on.
the
But not
fragility,
Natalie's sister, Lana
pain,
Wood.
the
She
human
never stopped
costs
fighting
of
for
pain.
answers.
In
Lana would
Wagner's
refuse to
world,
believe
the
Natalie's
tragedy
death
was not
was an
only
accident.
Natalie's death,
For
but the
decades,
life that
she
followed.
begged police to reopen the
The
case.
suspicion,
She
the
said the
relentless
bruises,
whispers,
the delay
and
in
the
calling for
internal
help,
torment that
and the
no
fear
accolade or
Natalie had of
success
water
could soothe.
all pointed to
Grief,
something darker.
regret, and
In
isolation
2011,
became his
30
companions.
years after
And with
Captain
each
Davern,
passing year,
he claimed
the
Wagner
echoes
was
of that night
responsible
grew
for what
louder,
happened that night.
shaping the man
For the
he
first
became
time,
and
police
coloring
labeled
every
Wagner a
relationship,
person of interest.
every choice.
The story
Every
exploded
memory with
again
the haunting
across the
presence
world,
of what had
but
been
Wagner
lost.
still said nothing.
In the
He
end,
simply
the
called it
Splendor
a
was
tragedy
more
that
than a
haunts
yacht.
me.
It was the stage
Dennis
of a human
Davern,
drama
the
that
yacht's
Hollywood
captain,
never
could no
fully
longer hold it
script or
in.
contain.
He told
The
NBC's
story of
Today
Natalie
show that
Wood,
Wagner had been
Robert
furious
Wagner,
after
and the
seeing
night that
Natalie
changed
and
everything
Walken
remains
talking.
a testament
He said
to love,
Wagner smashed a bottle,
jealousy,
shouted,
and the
and then
darkness
Natalie
that
ran
hid
off.
beneath even
Moments
most
later,
beautiful
she was gone.
surfaces.
Davern
It
claimed
reminds us
Wagner
that
stopped him from
behind
turning on the
every story of
searchlights
glamour
or calling the
lies a
Coast Guard
human heart.
right away.
Fragile
He said
and
Wagner told him,
complicated,
"We'll find her later."
vulnerable to
To
tragedy
Davern, that
pain
delay was
cannot
everything.
shield.
He believed Natalie
In
might have
his
lived
later
if help came
years,
sooner.
Wagner
Still,
spoke
Wagner
candidly
denied
about
the
the
story,
night that
calling it
changed
fiction.
his life.
Behind
Yet
Natalie's
more
beauty
he
and
confessed
charm
regret,
was deep fear.
sorrow,
She had
and
told
an
friends many
unending
times
burden of
that she
memories.
hated dark water. Studios
I
didn't want
was a man
scandal.
in love
Police
who made
reports were
mistakes,
vague, autopsy
and I paid
results
for them every
sealed,
single
and
day.
uncomfortable questions
Yet
ignored.
the darkness
Even
of that
witnesses
night
were told
never
not to
fully
talk.
lifted.
Rumors
The
said
scrutiny,
powerful
the
secrets
silence,
started
the
slipping
unanswered
out,
questions,
and the story refused
they
to
haunted
die.
him until his
Christopher
death.
Walken has barely
And for
spoken
the
about that
world,
night. All pointed to
Natalie
foul
Wood
play.
remains a symbol of
Detectives
tragedy,
called Wagner a
beauty,
person of
and
interest,
mystery
but said there wasn't enough
intertwined.
evidence to charge
Natalie
too
Wood's
much. Still,
brilliance
he
on
said he
screen
talks to
is
Natalie's
immortal.
picture every
Her
morning.
performances
She was my
continue to
life,
captivate
he whispered in one
generations,
interview. Pain, regret,
reminding the
and
world of a
secrets.
talent that was
Some say
rare,
this final
luminous,
confession was his
and
way of finding
unforgettable.
peace, still
Before
shine
her death
with her
is a
beauty
stark reminder
and
that
spirit.
even the brightest
Lana
stars
Wood
are
continues to speak
vulnerable.
for her sister,
That love
saying,
can be
Yes.
perilous,
And maybe,
that
just maybe,
secrets,
that's
no
the
matter how
truth he'd
carefully
been running
hidden,
from all his
can
life.
linger for decades. Fame offers no shield against heartbreak, jealousy, or the quiet tragedies that play out behind closed doors. Robert Wagner's story is complex, a tapestry woven with love, loss, guilt, and human frailty. He was neither a pure villain nor entirely innocent, but a man burdened by the weight of an unthinkable tragedy and the endless scrutiny that followed. For him, each day became a confrontation with memories he could neither change nor forget. A life shadowed by the unresolved, haunted by the echoes of a night that altered everything. For those who loved Natalie, the grief never faded. Friends, family, and fans were left with questions that had no answers, a mystery that refused to be silenced. The night of November 28, 1981, when the ocean swallowed her presence and left behind only whispers of fear, anger, and tragedy, became a haunting enigma. The waves carried away not just a life, but a world of possibilities, dreams, and laughter. And for Robert Wagner, every memory of that night became a lifelong reminder that some questions never find answers, that some losses are permanent, and that some regrets weigh heavier than words can express. In the silence of empty rooms, the shadows of the past loomed large, and every photograph, every mention of Natalie, every quiet reflection pulled him back into the darkness of that fateful night. Yet even in tragedy, Natalie's legacy endures. Her courage, her talent, and the fire in her eyes continue to inspire. Her story is a testament to the fragility of life, the complexity of human relationships, and the enduring power of love and memory, even when that love is intertwined with pain and mystery. Through her, we are reminded that some stars burn so brightly that their light cannot be extinguished, even by the darkest night. In Hollywood, stories of glamour often hide stories of heartbreak. Natalie Wood's death is not just a tale of mystery, but a narrative of passion, jealousy, and the delicate balance between love and obsession. We may never know the full truth, but we can remember Natalie not for how she died, but for the brilliance she brought to the world. And we can reflect on the darkness hidden beneath the dazzling lights, the human stories behind celebrity facades, and the tragedy that forever changed the lives of those who loved her most. Her life, though tragically cut short, was filled with moments that defined an era. She captivated audiences with her talent, charm, and an unmistakable vulnerability that made every role she played resonate deeply. Off-screen, she was more than a star. She was a sister, a daughter, a wife, a friend, a woman navigating the pressures of fame in a world that demanded perfection while leaving little room for human flaws. Those who knew her remember her laughter echoing through rooms, her warmth reaching beyond the cameras, and her strength in facing a life lived in the unforgiving glare of Hollywood. Scrutiny, the tragedy of that November night in 1981, is a reminder of the fragility of life and the fragility of relationships under the weight of fame and expectation. It reminds us that even amidst lights, applause, and accolades, human vulnerability persists. For Natalie, fear of water, a fear that haunted her since childhood, clashed with the events of that night in a way that would forever haunt her family, friends, and fans. Yet her legacy is not defined by the shadows that claimed her final hours. It is defined by the brilliance she radiated in every film, every performance, and every interaction that left those around her inspired. Her story is a warning, a tribute, and a celebration. A warning of the pressures and dangers of a world obsessed with image. A tribute to a woman whose life, love, and untapped potential left an indelible mark. And a celebration of a spirit that continues to shine, even decades after the waves of the Pacific carried her from this world. In remembering Natalie, we honor not only the star who dazzled on screen, but the human being whose heart, dreams, and struggles remain eternally vivid. Her story, though marred by mystery and heartbreak, is ultimately a testament to the enduring power of talent, love, and memory.